The tale of Cupid and Psyche, or Eros and Psyche, is intricately woven into the narrative of Apuleius's novel, The Golden Ass. This mythological story is situated at the midpoint of the novel, comprising about a fifth of its total length. The Golden Ass itself is a first-person narrative by Lucius, who undergoes a series of misadventures after being transformed into a donkey due to a magical mishap. His journey involves numerous trials and ultimately culminates in his redemption and restoration to human form through the intervention of the goddess Isis. Psyche's story parallels Lucius's own journey in several key aspects, including themes of dangerous curiosity, the endurance of severe trials and punishments, and eventual redemption through divine favor. As such, the tale serves as a structural mirror of the overarching plot of the novel, exemplifying the literary technique of mythical. This technique involves a story within a story, reflecting and enhancing the main narrative. Within The Golden Ass, the tale of Cupid and Psyche is recounted by Lucius as it was told by an old woman to Charite, a young bride kidnapped by pirates on her wedding day and held captive in a cave. The narrative is intended to comfort Charite, who fears rape, by presenting a story that ultimately ends in happiness. This narrative layer adds to the irony often employed by Apuleius. Although the tale of Cupid and Psyche does not function as a strict allegory for a specific Platonic argument, Apuleius incorporates general Platonic imagery and themes. These include the laborious ascent of the soul, as depicted in Plato's Phaedrus, and the soul's union with the divine through the agency of love, as described in the Symposium. Thus, the tale subtly reflects Platonic philosophical concepts while maintaining its distinct mythological and narrative integrity. Once upon a time, there was a king and queen who ruled over an unnamed city. They had 3 daughters, each renowned for their striking beauty. However, the youngest daughter, Psyche, possessed a beauty so extraordinary that people began to neglect the proper worship of Aphrodite, the love goddess Venus, and instead directed their prayers and offerings towards Psyche. Some even rumored that Psyche was the reincarnation of Venus herself, or the product of an illicit union between the goddess and a mortal man. Offended by this usurpation of her worship, Venus decided to exact her revenge. Venus commissioned her son, Cupid, to ensure Psyche's downfall by making her fall in love with something hideous. Cupid, equipped with his arrows that cause anyone they strike to fall in love with the first thing they see, set out to fulfill his mother's command. However, upon seeing Psyche, Cupid was so captivated by her beauty that he accidentally scratched himself with his own arrow. This mistake caused Cupid to fall deeply in love with Psyche, and he could not bring himself to carry out his mother's vengeful plan. Despite her remarkable beauty, Psyche remained unmarried, unlike her 2 sisters, who had found suitable husbands. Concerned by Psyche's continued single status, and fearing that they had incurred the wrath of the gods, her father sought guidance from the oracle of Apollo. The oracle's response was alarming and foreboding. The king was to expect not a human son-in-law, but rather a monstrous, dragon-like creature, one that terrorized the world with fire and iron and was dreaded by even Jupiter and the denizens of the underworld. This prophecy plunged the royal family into despair, as they awaited the arrival of the fearsome creature destined to become Psyche's husband. Psyche, adorned in funeral attire, is escorted by a solemn procession to the peak of a rocky crag, where she is left exposed. In this ritual, marriage and death are intertwined, marking a transition to the unknown. Zephyrus, the west wind, gently lifts her from the cliff and carries her to meet her mysterious destiny, depositing her in a beautiful meadow, Locus Aminus. Exhausted, she falls asleep upon her arrival. When Psyche awakens, she finds herself at the edge of a cultivated grove, Lucus. As she explores her surroundings, she discovers an extraordinary house with golden columns, a carved ceiling of citrus wood and ivory, walls embossed with silver depicting wild and domesticated animals, and floors adorned with jeweled mosaics. Inside this marvelous abode, a disembodied voice welcomes her, inviting her to make herself at home. She is entertained by an otherworldly feast that serves itself, accompanied by music from an invisible lyre. Despite her initial fear and inexperience, Psyche allows herself to be led to a luxurious bedroom. There, in the cover of darkness, she is visited by an unseen being who shares her bed and makes love to her. Although she cannot see him, She gradually becomes accustomed to his presence and begins to look forward to his nightly visits. However, her mysterious lover always departs before dawn, and he strictly forbids her from attempting to see his face. As time passes, Psyche becomes pregnant. Her curiosity and the enigmatic nature of her situation grow alongside her love for the unseen husband. She longs to know the true identity of her nocturnal visitor, torn between her burgeoning affection for him and the desire to uncover the mystery that surrounds her life. Despite her happiness, the prohibitions placed upon her and the impending motherhood stir a deep restlessness and a sense of inevitable discovery. Psyche's family, distressed by her absence, longs for any news of her fate. After much pleading, Cupid, still unknown to Psyche as her husband, relents and permits Zephyrus to bring her sisters up for a visit. Upon seeing the splendor in which Psyche resides, her sisters are consumed with envy. They conspire to undermine her happiness by insisting that she must uncover her husband's true identity. They warn her that, as foretold by the oracle, she must be living with the vile winged serpent who would eventually devour her and her unborn child. One night, after Cupid has fallen asleep, Psyche decides to follow her sister's advice. She retrieves a dagger and a hidden lamp, intending to kill the supposed monster. However, when she lights the lamp and gazes upon her sleeping husband, she sees not a monster, but the most beautiful being she has ever laid eyes on. In her shock, she accidentally pricks herself with one of Cupid's arrows from his discarded quiver, igniting a feverish passion within her. In her trembling, she spills hot oil from the lamp onto Cupid, awakening him. Startled and hurt, he flies away. Psyche attempts to follow him, but he vanishes, leaving her desolate on the river bank. There, Psyche is discovered by Pan, the god of the wilderness, who recognizes the signs of passion in her demeanor. She acknowledges his divine presence, Numen, and then begins a desperate journey, wandering the earth in search of her lost love. Her first visits are to her sisters, who, upon learning the true identity of Psyche's husband, are overcome with renewed jealousy. Each sister attempts to replace Psyche by climbing the rocky crag and throwing herself upon Zephyrus for conveyance, but instead, they meet a brutal death, plummeting to the ground below. Determined and heartbroken, Psyche continues her quest, facing numerous trials and hardships. She realizes the magnitude of her loss and the depth of her love for Cupid. In her wanderings, she encounters various gods and receives guidance and assistance from some, while others impose further challenges upon her. Her journey is one of penance and perseverance, as she strives to prove her devotion and win back Cupid's love. In the course of her wanderings, Psyche comes upon a temple of Ceres, the goddess of agriculture. Inside, she finds a disarray of grain offerings, garlands, and agricultural implements. Understanding the importance of honoring the gods with proper reverence, Psyche sets everything in order. This act of devotion prompts a theophany of Ceres herself. Although Psyche earnestly prays for aid, Ceres, though acknowledging that Psyche is deserving of help, explains that she is unable to assist her against the will of another goddess. A similar encounter occurs at the temple of Juno. Psyche puts the temple in order, and Juno appears. However, Juno too cannot intervene in Psyche's favor. Realizing that her only hope lies in serving Venus herself, Psyche resolves to face the goddess of love directly. Venus delights in having Psyche under her control and hands her over to her handmaids, Worry and Sadness, who whip and torture Psyche. Venus tears Psyche's clothes, bashes her head into the ground, and mocks her for conceiving a child in what she derides as a sham marriage. The goddess then sets Psyche an impossible task. She throws a great mass of mixed wheat, barley, poppy seeds, chickpeas, lentils, and beans before her, demanding that they be sorted into separate heaps by dawn. When Venus withdraws to attend a wedding feast, a kind ant takes pity on Psyche. The ant assembles a fleet of insects, and together they accomplish the task. Venus returns from the feast, drunk and furious to find the task completed, and in her anger, she throws Psyche only a crust of bread. At this point, it is revealed that Cupid is also in the house of Venus, suffering from the injury caused by the spilled oil. Despite his pain, Cupid's love for Psyche remains strong. At dawn, Venus sets a second task for Psyche. She is to cross a river and fetch golden wool from violent sheep grazing on the other side, identified as belonging to Helios, the sun god. Desperate and hopeless, Psyche intends to drown herself during the crossing. However, as she approaches the river, a divinely inspired reed, the type used to make musical instruments, speaks to her, instructing her to wait until the sheep are resting. Following the reed's guidance, Psyche gathers the golden wool caught on the briars without confronting the dangerous creatures directly. Impressed but undeterred in her cruelty, Venus assigns Psyche a third, even more daunting task. She hands Psyche a crystal vessel and orders her to collect the black water from the source of the river's Styx and Cocytus. The waters issue from a treacherous cliff, guarded by slithering dragons and exuding a foreboding air. Psyche, overwhelmed by the perilous task, falls into deep despair. Moved by Psyche's plight, Jupiter takes pity on her. He sends his mighty eagle to assist her. The eagle, powerful and fearless, soars over the daunting cliff, deftly evades the dragons, and retrieves the black water, filling Psyche's crystal vessel. Despite completing this third task, Venus's wrath remains unabated. She devises yet another seemingly impossible challenge. The last trial Venus imposes on Psyche is the most daunting of all, a quest to the underworld. Psyche is to take a box, Pyxis, and obtain within it a dose of the beauty of Proserpina, the queen of the underworld. Venus claims that her own beauty has waned due to the stress of tending to her ailing son, Cupid, and she needs this remedy to restore herself before attending the theater of the gods, Theatrum Deorum. Once again despairing of her seemingly impossible task, Psyche climbs a tower, intending to throw herself off and end her suffering. However, the tower suddenly breaks into speech, advising her instead to travel to Lacedaemon in Greece, and seek out Taenarus, where the entrance to the underworld lies. The tower offers her detailed instructions for navigating the perilous journey. The airway of Dis is there, and through the yawning gates, the pathless route is revealed. Once you cross the threshold, you are committed to the unswerving course that takes you to the very Regia of Orcus. But you shouldn't go empty-handed through the shadows past this point. Carry cakes of honeyed barley in both hands and transport 2 coins in your mouth. The speaking tower warns Psyche to maintain silence as she passes by several ominous figures: a lame man driving a mule loaded with sticks, a dead man swimming in the river that separates the world of the living from the world of the dead, and old women weaving. The tower cautions that these figures will seek to divert her by pleading for her help, but she must ignore them to succeed in her quest. The cakes are treats to distract Cerberus, the 3-headed watchdog of Orcus, and the 2 coins are for Charon the ferryman, ensuring she can make a return trip. Following the tower's advice, Psyche makes her way to Lacedaemon and finds the entrance to the underworld at Taenarus. Armed with the knowledge and the provisions the tower suggested, she crosses the threshold and begins her descent into the realm of the dead. She remains silent and resolute, ignoring the pleas of the lame man, the dead swimmer, and the weaving women. Along the way, she uses the cakes of honeyed barley to distract Cerberus, the fearsome 3-headed guard dog, allowing her to pass safely. She gives one of the coins to Charon, the ferryman of the dead, to carry her across the river Styx. Upon reaching the palace of Proserpina, Psyche humbly presents her request. Moved by Psyche's plight and impressed by her courage, Proserpina grants her the box containing a portion of her beauty. Psyche retraces her steps, paying Charon the 2nd coin to return across the Styx and giving Cerberus the 2nd cake to secure her passage back. Emerging from the underworld, Psyche is overcome by curiosity. She cannot resist opening the box, hoping to take some of the divine beauty for herself. Instead, she finds nothing inside, but an infernal and Stygian sleep, which engulfs her, sending her into a deep, death-like slumber. Meanwhile, Cupid's wound heals into a scar, and he escapes his mother's house by flying out of a window. When he finds Psyche, he gently draws the sleep from her face and places it back into the box. He then pricks her with an arrow that causes no harm, awakening her from her slumber. Cupid lifts her into the air, and together they ascend to Olympus to present the box to Venus. Cupid then takes his case to Zeus, the king of the gods. In exchange for Cupid's promise to assist him whenever a beautiful maiden catches his eye, Zeus consents to their union. Zeus instructs Hermes to convene an assembly of the gods in the theater of heaven, where he makes a public declaration of approval. He warns Venus to cease her opposition and gives Psyche ambrosia, the drink of immortality, thus ensuring that she and Cupid can be united in marriage as equals. Their union, Zeus proclaims, will redeem Cupid from his history of provoking adulterous and sordid liaisons. Zeus's decree is solemnized with a grand wedding banquet, attended by all the gods. With its happy marriage and resolution of conflicts, the tale ends in the manner of classic comedy or Greek romances such as Daphnis and Chloe. The child born to Psyche and Cupid is named Voluptas, Greek hedon, meaning pleasure, symbolizing the ultimate joy and fulfillment that result from their trials and enduring love. The story serves as a timeless allegory of the soul's journey toward divine love and the eventual union with the divine. It reflects the trials and tribulations one must endure to achieve true happiness and the transformative power of love. Their tale, filled with challenges, divine interventions, and ultimate reconciliation, continues to resonate as a profound exploration of the human condition and the eternal quest for love and fulfillment. The Assembly of the Gods, a celebrated occasion in both visual and performing arts, unfolds in grandeur and splendor as Cupid and Psyche's wedding banquet commences. Apuleius paints a vivid picture of the scene, likening it to a festive Roman cena, or dinner party. Cupid, now a husband, reclines in the place of honor at the top couch, with Psyche nestled in his lap, embraced lovingly. Zeus and Hera, the king and queen of the gods, likewise take their places of prominence, radiating divine majesty and authority. As the gods gather, the cupbearer of Jove, serving Zeus with nectar, the wine of the gods, fulfills his duty. Apuleius refers to the cupbearer simply as that country boy, eschewing the traditional name of Ganymede. Liber, the jovial Roman god of wine, takes charge of serving the rest of the company, ensuring that the festivities are imbued with merriment and cheer. Vulcan, the skilled god of fire and craftsmanship, assumes the role of the master chef, cooking sumptuous dishes fit for the divine assembly. Meanwhile, the Ori, embodiments of the seasons or hours, adorn the surroundings with vibrant roses and fragrant flowers, infusing the atmosphere with beauty and elegance. The Graces, renowned for their charm and grace, suffuse the setting with the sweet scent of balsam, enhancing the sensory experience of the banquet. The muses of artistic inspiration, lend their voices to melodic singing, filling the air with enchanting melodies that uplift the spirits of all present. Apollo, the god of music and poetry, serenades the gathering with the ethereal strains of his lyre, enchanting all with his celestial melodies. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, takes center stage in the dancing festivities, captivating all with her graceful movements and radiant presence. The muses accompany her as her chorus girls, while a satyr skillfully plays the aulos, and a young Pan expresses himself through the melodious tones of the panpipes. As the gods revel in the joyous celebration, the wedding banquet of Cupid and Psyche becomes a spectacle of divine splendor and harmony, a testament to the enduring power of love and the unity of the immortal realm. The scene encapsulates the beauty and grandeur of the gods' domain, a timeless tableau of divine majesty and celestial delight. The wedding banquet of Cupid and Psyche serves as a poignant closure to the narrative structure, symbolizing the culmination of their tumultuous journey and the ultimate triumph of their love. The pleasures that Psyche mysteriously enjoyed in the domus of Cupid at the beginning of her Odyssey, marked by a false marriage preceded by funeral rites, are now reimagined in the Hall of the Gods, following correct ritual procedure for a genuine marriage. For the Roman audience, the arranging of the gods in their proper order, in ordinem, would evoke the religious ceremony of the lectisternium, a public banquet held for the major deities. During the lectisternium, statues representing the gods were arranged on luxurious couches as if they were present and participating in the meal, reinforcing the divine presence and invoking blessings upon the participants. The wedding banquet of Cupid and Psyche became a favorite theme for Renaissance art, inspiring numerous masterpieces by renowned artists. The story has long been subject to allegorical interpretation, offering rich fodder for philosophical and religious contemplation across different epochs and cultures. In late antiquity, Martianus Capella in the 5th century refashioned the tale as an allegory about the fall of the human soul. For Capella, The immortality granted to Psyche's soul symbolized a reward for her commitment to sexual love. However, in his version, sexual love draws Psyche into the material world, which is subject to death, symbolized by Cupid shackling her in adamantine chains, separating her from virtue. This allegorical potential led to adaptations of the tale in Christian or mystical contexts, often interpreting it as symbolic of the soul's journey and struggles. In the Gnostic text on the origin of the world, the story of Cupid and Psyche is woven into the creation narrative of the cosmos. Cupid, or Eros, depicted as an androgynous being, plays a pivotal role in the creation myth. His dual nature embodies both masculine and feminine qualities, symbolizing a unity that transcends conventional gender boundaries. Eros's influence extends to the gods and their angels, whom he makes fall in love with him, highlighting the power of love and desire as fundamental forces in the universe. Justice, another key figure in this narrative, is credited with creating paradise. Within this sacred garden, the trees of life and knowledge flourish, representing the dual pillars of existence, vitality and wisdom. The olive tree, in particular, is noted for its role in purifying justice, symbolizing peace, purity, and the reconciliation of divine principles. Psyche, whose name signifies the soul, is deeply enamored with Eros. Her love is so profound that she pours her blood upon him, and her loss of virginity gives birth to the first rose. This imagery of the rose, born from Psyche's blood, encapsulates themes of love, sacrifice, and the beauty that arises from deep emotional and spiritual connections. Christian mythographer Fulgentius viewed Psyche as an Adam figure, driven by sinful curiosity and lust from the paradise of love's domain, with her sisters representing flesh and free will, and her parents symbolizing God and matter. In the 14th century, Boccaccio saw the marriage of Cupid and Psyche as symbolizing the union of the soul with God, adding another layer to the allegorical interpretations of the tale. Even in modern scholarship, the temptation to interpret the story as a religious or philosophical allegory persists, with Psyche's very name symbolizing the aspirations of the human soul toward divine love personified in Cupid. However, such interpretations risk overlooking the complexities and nuances of the characters and themes within the narrative. Cupid is depicted not only as a symbol of divine love, but also as a corrupter who delights in disrupting marriages and engaging in adulterous affairs. His union with Psyche is marked by sensuality, and his character is far from the idealized representation of divine love. Moreover, the name given to their child, voluptas, pleasure, further complicates any straightforward allegorical reading, hinting at the intertwined nature of love and pleasure in human experience. Thus, while the story of Cupid and Psyche undoubtedly lends itself to allegorical interpretation, its richness lies in its ability to encompass a wide range of themes and ideas, from the divine to the mundane, the spiritual to the sensual, inviting readers to explore its depths and complexities from various perspectives. Apuleius's novel, The Metamorphoses, underwent a significant transformation in its reception history, transitioning from obscurity to widespread acclaim over the centuries. Originally edited in codex form at the end of the 4th century, it became known to Latin writers such as Augustine of Hippo, Macrobius, Sidonius Apollinaris, Martianus Capella, and Fulgentius. However, by the end of the 6th century, it had lapsed into obscurity and survived through perhaps only a single manuscript. The Metamorphoses remained largely unknown until the mid-1300s when copies began to circulate among early humanists in Florence. Boccaccio's text and interpretation of Cupid and Psyche in his Genealogia Deorum Gentilium, written in the 1370s and published in 1472, played a pivotal role in reintroducing the tale to the Italian Renaissance and spreading it throughout Europe. One of the most enduring images from the tale is Psyche's discovery of a sleeping, naked Cupid, depicted in various mediums such as ceramics, stained glass, and frescoes. Mannerist painters were particularly drawn to this scene, exploring its psychological depth and symbolic resonance. In England, interest in the Cupid and Psyche theme reached its peak from 1566 to 1635, spurred by the first English translation by William Adlington. The tale was dramatized by Thomas Heywood in his Masked Love's Mistress, performed to celebrate the wedding of Charles I and Henrietta Maria. Henrietta Maria later adorned her withdrawing chamber with a 22-painting Cupid and Psyche cycle by Jacob Jordians, emphasizing the Neoplatonic themes of divine love and spiritual transformation. Another resurgence of interest in Cupid and Psyche occurred in late 18th and early 19th century Paris, coinciding with the proliferation of opera, ballet, salon art, deluxe book editions, and interior decoration inspired by the myth. In the aftermath of the French Revolution, the tale became a vehicle for self-reflection and reinvention. In English intellectual and artistic circles around the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries, the fascination with Cupid and Psyche paralleled an interest in the ancient mystery religions. Erasmus Darwin, in his writings about the Portland vase, speculated on the myth's connection to the Eleusinian cycle, viewing the butterfly as a metaphor for the soul's transformation and resurrection. In 1491, the poet Niccolò de Correggio embarked on a retelling of the tale, with a unique twist, Cupid himself as the narrator. John Milton, in his work Comus, 1634, subtly alludes to the story of Cupid and Psyche, attributing not one but two children to the couple, youth and joy. William Blake, the visionary poet and artist, drew upon elements of the Cupid and Psyche myth in his own mythology. In Blake's mythological universe, the figures of Luvah and Vala embody aspects of the divine lovers, with Luvah assuming the various guises of Apuleius's Cupid, beautiful and winged, a disembodied voice, and even a serpent. Blake's fusion of the myth with spiritual themes and eroticism, particularly in his interpretation of the Song of Solomon, creates a potent blend of passion and mysticism, inviting readers into a realm where love and spirituality intertwine. Mary Tighe's poem Psyche, published in 1805, offered a unique reinterpretation of the classic tale, infusing it with new details and imaginative flourishes. One notable addition was the presence of two springs in Venus's garden, one with sweet water and one with bitter. When Cupid reluctantly obeyed his mother's command to make Psyche fall in love with something hideous, he brought some of both waters to a sleeping Psyche, but only placed the bitter water on her lips. In Tighe's rendition, Venus tasked Psyche with only one trial, to bring her the forbidden water. However, this simple task led Psyche into a fantastical journey through a country reminiscent of Spenser's Faerie Queene. Along the way, she was aided by a mysterious visored knight and his squire, Constance, navigating through various traps set by vanity, flattery, ambition, credulity, dysphoria, who resided in a Gothic castle, Varia, and Geloso. C.S. Lewis's novel, Till We Have Faces, a myth retold, published in 1956, is a profound reimagining of the ancient myth of Cupid and Psyche. This story had captivated Lewis throughout his life, largely due to his perception that the actions of some characters in the original were illogical and psychologically unconvincing. In his retelling, Lewis addresses these perceived inconsistencies through a deeply developed narrative voice and rich character exploration. The novel is narrated by Orual, Psyche's older sister, whose perspective drives the story. Unlike the myth's traditional focus on the divine romance between Psyche and Cupid, Lewis's version centers on the human experience, delving into themes of jealousy, love, and the search for meaning. Lewis's fascination with the myth culminated in this novel, which he considered his most mature work. The intricate narrative and character development reflect his philosophical and theological contemplations. Significantly, Till We Have Faces was written in collaboration with his wife, Joy David Mann, whose influence is evident in the nuanced portrayal of relationships and the exploration of feminine perspectives. C.S. Lewis begins with the bitter complaint of Orual, an old woman who feels deeply wronged by the gods. Orual, the eldest daughter of the King of Glome, has always been considered unattractive. After the death of her mother, her father remarries, and she gains a beautiful half-sister named Istra, known throughout the novel by her Greek name, Psyche. Orual loves Psyche as if she were her own daughter. Psyche's extraordinary beauty leads the people of Glome to worship her as a goddess. The kingdom of Glome faces various plagues, which the priest of the goddess Ungit attributes to Ungit's jealousy of Psyche. To appease Ungit, Psyche is to be sacrificed to the unseen god of the mountain, who is said to be Ungit's son. Despite Orual's love and determination to rescue Psyche, she falls ill and is unable to intervene. Once recovered, Orual travels to the mountain to either save Psyche or bury her remains. She is astonished to find Psyche alive and free from her bonds. Psyche explains that she is not in need of rescue. Instead, she lives in a magnificent invisible castle and is married to the god of the mountain, who has made her his bride. At one point, Orual believes she briefly glimpses this castle, but it vanishes like mist. She grows suspicious upon learning that Psyche has been forbidden to see her husband's face, as their meetings occur only in the darkness of night. Orual suspects that the god might be a monster or that Psyche is delusional after her traumatic ordeal. She argues that there is no castle and that Psyche's husband might be an opportunistic outlaw exploiting her delusions. She feels compelled to convince Psyche of this illusion, unable to tolerate either possibility. Orual returns to the mountain with a lamp, urging Psyche to use it to reveal her husband's face while he sleeps. Psyche refuses, unwilling to betray her husband's trust. Desperate and determined, Orual threatens Psyche, even stabbing her own arm to prove she is serious. Reluctantly, out of love and coercion, Psyche agrees to Orual's plan. When Psyche disobeys her husband and uses the lamp, she is immediately banished from her beautiful castle and forced to wander as an exile. The god of the mountain appears to Orual, declaring that Psyche must now endure hardship due to a force even he cannot combat, likely his mother, the goddess Ungit. He tells Orual, "You too shall be Psyche," a cryptic statement that Orual struggles to interpret for the rest of her life, usually taking it to mean that she must suffer alongside Psyche. She condemns the god's cruelty, arguing that if they had shown her a clearer picture of Psyche's happiness, she would not have destroyed it. From this moment, Orual vows to keep her face veiled at all times, symbolizing her inner torment and self-imposed isolation. Orual ascends to the throne and becomes a formidable queen, excelling as a warrior, diplomat, architect, reformer, politician, legislator, and judge. Despite her achievements, she remains emotionally isolated, driven by work to forget her grief and the love she has lost. Psyche is gone, and the other members of her family she never cared for have faded from her life. Her beloved tutor, the fox, has died, and her main love interest, Bardia, the captain of the royal guard, is married and remains faithful to his wife until his death. To Orual, the gods remain silent, unseen, and merciless. When Bardia is on his deathbed, Orual finds herself unable to bear the sight of her own kingdom any longer. She decides to leave for the first time and visit neighboring realms. During her journey, while resting, she leaves her group at their camp and follows mysterious sounds into a wood, discovering they come from a temple dedicated to the goddess Istra, Psyche. There, she hears a version of Psyche's myth that portrays herself as deliberately ruining Psyche's life out of envy. Disturbed and outraged by this narrative, she resolves to write her own story to set the record straight, hoping it will reach Greece, where she believes people are willing to question even the gods. Orual's account is her attempt to justify her actions and seek understanding. Her narrative reveals the depth of her love for Psyche, her struggles with the gods, and her quest for self-understanding. She grapples with the haunting phrase, "You too shall be Psyche," which ultimately leads her to a profound realization about her identity and her relationship with the divine. Through her story, Orual seeks not only to clear her name, but to find peace with the gods and with herself, exploring themes of love, jealousy, sacrifice, and the quest for truth. Orual begins the second part of the book by admitting that her previous accusation against the gods was mistaken. Acknowledging her age and declining health, she realizes she lacks the time to rewrite the entire book, so she adds an addendum to clarify her revised understanding. Since completing the first part, Orual has experienced a series of vivid dreams and visions. Initially skeptical, she becomes convinced of their reality as they begin to occur during her waking hours. In these visions, Orual is confronted with a series of seemingly impossible tasks, sorting a massive heap of mixed seeds into separate piles without error, collecting golden wool from a flock of deadly rams, and fetching water from an unscalable mountain spring guarded by poisonous creatures. During the last vision, she finds herself in a vast chamber in the land of the dead, given the chance to present her complaint before the gods. However, instead of reading from her prepared book, Orual finds herself holding a paper that manifests her true, raw emotions. To her shock, she realizes her true feelings are far less noble than those expressed in the first part of her book. She begins to read aloud, pouring out her inner turmoil, pain, and grievances, believing she has been speaking only briefly. Yet, as she is stopped, she realizes she has been recounting her suffering and struggles repetitively for days on end, with the gods listening silently. In this revelation, Orual acknowledges that her jealousy was not directed at Psyche, as suggested by the version of the myth she encountered at the temple, but rather at the gods themselves. She envied their ability to bask in Psyche's love, a love she felt was denied to her. This epiphany transforms her understanding of her actions and emotions, exposing the depth of her longing and the true nature of her bitterness. In this vulnerable state, Orual finally sees herself clearly. She comprehends that her accusations against the gods were a projection of her own inner conflicts and unfulfilled desires. As she completes her confession, she feels a sense of release and understanding that she had been seeking all along. The gods' silence, which she once interpreted as indifference or cruelty, now seems to reflect a deeper, ineffable wisdom. Orual's journey, from the initial bitterness and accusation to this profound self-revelation, marks her transformation. She comes to realize that her love for Psyche, though genuine, was tainted by possessiveness and jealousy, which prevented her from truly understanding and accepting Psyche's happiness. In her final moments, Orual achieves a semblance of peace, recognizing the complexity of love and the necessity of letting go. This newfound clarity allows her to face her impending death with a sense of reconciliation, both with herself and the divine. She understands that the gods' ways are beyond her comprehension, yet within their mysterious workings lies a profound truth about love, sacrifice, and the human condition. Orual's story, thus, becomes a testament to the transformative power of self-awareness and the ultimate quest for understanding and acceptance. The gods make no reply. But Orual is content, as she sees that the gods' answer was really to hold up the mirror of her lies to herself, and make her understand the truth of her own life and actions. Then she is led by the ghost of the fox into a sunlit arena where she learns the story of what Psyche has been doing. She has herself been assigned the impossible tasks from Orual's dreams, but was able to complete them with supernatural help. Orual then leaves the arena to enter another verdant field with a clear pool of water and a brilliant sky. There she meets Psyche, who has just returned from her last errand, retrieving a box of beauty from the underworld, which she then gives to Orual, though Orual is hardly conscious of this because at that moment she begins to sense that something else is happening. The god of the mountain is coming to be with Psyche and judge Orual, but the only thing he says is, "You also are Psyche," before the vision ends. The reader is led to understand that this phrase has actually been one of mercy the entire time. Orual, awoken from the vision, dies shortly thereafter, but has just enough time to record her visions and to write that she no longer hates the gods, but sees that their very presence, though mysterious, is the answer she always needed. As the vision fades, Orual feels a profound peace wash over her. The fox's ghostly presence beside her is both comforting and enlightening, his wisdom now fully revealed in this transcendent realm. He gently guides her through the memories of her life, helping her to see the moments of love and sacrifice that she had overlooked or misunderstood in her bitterness and blindness. Each memory is illuminated with a clarity she never had in life, showing the interconnectedness of her actions and their impact on others, particularly Psyche. Orual now understands the full meaning of "You also are Psyche." It signifies not just their shared suffering and trials, but the deeper truth that she and Psyche are reflections of the same soul, both striving towards the divine amidst their human frailties. This realization fills her with a profound sense of unity and acceptance. She sees that the god's silence was not indifference, but a space for her to grow and discover her true self. In this final moment of epiphany, Orual sees Psyche in all her glory, radiating the divine beauty she had always possessed. Psyche embraces her, and in that embrace, Orual feels the forgiveness and love she had longed for. She realizes that Psyche's trials were not only for Psyche's growth but for her own as well, leading her to this ultimate understanding and reconciliation. The verdant field, with its clear pool of water and brilliant sky, symbolizes the eternal realm where love and truth prevail. Orual looks into the pool and sees her reflection, no longer the veiled, embittered queen, but a being of light, her true self revealed at last. The god of the mountain's words echo in her mind, a reminder of her divine nature and her journey towards self-realization. With her final breath, Orual writes down her last thoughts, her hands steady and her heart clear. She no longer curses the gods. Instead, she blesses them for the journey they set her upon, for the lessons learned, and for the love that transcended all trials. Her last words reflect her acceptance and peace. The gods are just, and they have shown me that their ways, though mysterious, are full of wisdom and mercy. As she lays down her pen, Orual's spirit is gently lifted from the earthly realm. She joins Psyche in the eternal embrace, their souls united in the divine love they both sought and found. The story ends with a sense of fulfillment and harmony, the once veiled queen now unveiled in truth and love, her journey complete. The idea of retelling the myth with the palace being invisible came early to Lewis, and he chose to narrate the story from the perspective of the elder sister. By doing so, he transformed Orual from a character of mere envy and spite into one representing the ignorance and jealousy any mortal might feel towards the divine. This approach added layers of complexity to Orual's character, making her motivations more relatable and human. Lewis experimented with different verse forms when he considered himself primarily a poet, indicating that he had been at work on Orual for 35 years, although the final version of the book was written relatively quickly. In his pre-Christian days, Lewis imagined the story with Orual in the right and the gods in the wrong. One inconsistency in Apuleius's version of the myth that Lewis sought to address was the sister's ability to see the palace. For Lewis, belief was a central theme, and he felt that Apuleius missed an opportunity to give his version a true mythic quality. According to Rudolf Otto's concept of the numinous in his 1923 work The Idea of the Holy, this quality involves a sense of awe in the presence of the spiritual, or holy. In Lewis's retelling, Orual lacks the belief system that would allow her to enter the realm of the numinous. She briefly glimpses the palace before it vanishes, signifying her inability to fully embrace the divine. This lack of belief fuels her resolve to protect Psyche from the love of others, which becomes the root of her jealousy and the crux of her accusations against the gods' injustices. Conversely, Psyche is portrayed as inherently open to the numinous from a young age. She feels a civic duty to heal the people of Glome and willingly accepts her role as the accursed, destined for death or marriage to the Shadow Brute, the god of the Grey Mountain. Psyche's acceptance of her fate and her ability to embrace the divine contrasts sharply with Orual's skepticism and jealousy, highlighting the central conflict between faith and doubt in the narrative. Another theme that Lewis felt Apuleius did not fully develop revolves around sacrifice. Till We Have Faces is not just a retelling of Apuleius's original story, but also a retelling of the myth Orual has been telling herself. This is represented by the segmentation of her narrative into Part 1, the myth she tells herself, and Part 2, the retelling to herself with a new understanding of her self-awareness and outer connections to others. By the end of Part 1, Orual realizes that her love for Psyche has become perverted. It is a possessive love, unwilling to share Psyche's love with others. Bardia's widow, Anset, points this out to Orual in a no-holds-barred confrontation after her husband's death. Orual has consumed the lives of her loved ones just as Ungit consumes sacrifices. This confrontation initiates Orual's journey towards self-awareness, leading to her death of self or sacrifice of herself to others, a higher, more universal power. On a societal or cultural level, the need to temper natural loves is central to Lewis's ideology. He would expand upon this theme 4 years after Till We Have Faces, in his 1960 book The Four Loves, discussing the necessity of subjugating storge, or affection, philia, friendship, and eros, romantic love, to agape, divine love. According to Lewis, agape's authority is essential to maintain the order of the three natural loves. Without it, these loves would become disordered and destructive. This concept has roots as far back as Homer's era, exemplified by the Trojan War, which served to illustrate to the Greeks the effects of disordered love on socio-cultural mores, as seen in the story of Helen of Troy. In Till We Have Faces, Orual's possessive love for Psyche exemplifies how natural love, when ungoverned by agape, can become consuming and destructive. Orual's journey towards self-awareness and sacrifice is a journey towards understanding and embracing divine love. Her ultimate realization that the God's presence is the answer she always needed signifies her acceptance of agape and the proper ordering of her loves. Lewis originally titled his working manuscripts Bareface. However, his editor, Roger Lancelyn Green, rejected this title, concerned that readers might mistake it for a Western novel. In response, Lewis argued that even if people did mistake it for a Western, it might actually attract readers rather than deter them, noting that the title was cryptic enough to be intriguing. Despite his initial defense, Lewis began considering alternative titles on February 29, 1956, ultimately choosing Till We Have Faces. This new title is drawn from a pivotal line in the book where Orual reflects, "How can the gods meet us face to face till we have faces?" Lewis defended his choice of the new title in a letter to his longtime correspondent, Dorothea Conybeare. He explained that the title encapsulates a central theme of the book, the necessity for a human to speak with its own true voice. He emphasized that a person must express their genuine desires, not what they imagine they desire, and be their true self, free from any mask, veil, or persona. This notion of authenticity and self-revelation is critical to the narrative and thematic structure of the novel. Till We Have Faces explores the transformation of Orual from a person shrouded in bitterness, jealousy, and self-deception to one who gains self-awareness and understanding of her own flaws. The title underscores the idea that true communication with the divine, and with oneself, can only occur when one has shed all pretenses and stands bare, with a true face. This process of unveiling is reflected in Orual's journey, as she comes to terms with her own shortcomings and the nature of her possessive love for Psyche. Myths, like fairy tales, are typically set in enigmatic locations with a nebulous orientation toward time, drawing the audience's attention to the characters' actions and the moral implications of their choices. This focus on archetypal actions and moral lessons is a hallmark of traditional mythological storytelling. However, Until We Have Faces, C.S. Lewis departs from this convention by grounding his retelling of the Cupid and Psyche myth from Apuleius in a detailed and believable historical setting. Lewis meticulously describes the geography of the fictitious kingdom of Glome and the surrounding regions, giving specific distances and geographical features to create a sense of realism. For instance, Orual, the narrator, provides precise measurements of how far Glome is from the river, such as stating it is about as far back from the river as a woman can walk in the third of an hour. This attention to detail helps to establish the historicity of the story, making it feel more like a historical account than a myth. Lewis's approach is intentional. He aims to argue that myths are not just fantastical stories but are rooted in historical figures and events that have evolved culturally into epic proportions. This concept aligns with the notion of euhemerism, developed by the Greek philosopher Euhemerus around 300 BC. Euhemerism posits that many gods were originally historical mortal personalities, who became deified over time. By grounding his story in historical realism, Lewis reinforces the idea that myths can be seen as embodiments or origins of real historical actions and figures. Lewis communicated his intentions clearly to Clyde Kilby, describing Till We Have Faces as a work of supposed historical imagination. A guess at what it might have been like in a little barbarous state on the borders of the Hellenistic world with Greek culture just beginning to affect it. This blend of historical fiction and modern psychological insights creates a unique synthesis that gives the narrative both a day-in-the-life historicity and a deep connection to Jungian psychological archetypes. Doris T. Myers, in her analysis, supports this view by arguing that Till We Have Faces combines elements of historical fiction with modern fiction techniques. The tale of Cupid and Psyche transcends its ancient origins to offer rich psychological insights into human development and relationships. In Erich Newman's Jungian interpretation, the story of Psyche symbolizes the psychic development of the feminine. Through her trials and challenges, Psyche undergoes a transformative journey, mirroring the individuation process of psychological maturation. Feminist scholars have also explored the tale, viewing it as a paradigm of the disintegration of gender unity among women due to rivalry and envy. The bonds of sisterhood are replaced by an ideal of heterosexual love, reflecting broader societal constructs and expectations. In ancient times, even before the narrative of Apuleius's tale, there existed an iconographical tradition that depicted Psyche and Cupid in various artistic forms. This tradition influenced later depictions of the story, shaping the visual representations of the characters and their journey. From classical sculptures and frescoes to Renaissance paintings and modern interpretations, artists have continued to explore the themes and motifs of the myth in their works. The imagery of Psyche with butterfly wings has become particularly prevalent, symbolizing the transformation and transcendence of the soul. Butterfly is a symbol of the profound metamorphosis from an ugly, larval state to a beautiful, winged creature. The enduring presence of Cupid and Psyche in ancient artifacts suggests that their story held significant religious or mystical meaning for various cultures. Rings adorned with their likeness, especially those found in Roman Britain, may have served as protective amulets, believed to ward off spiritual harm or bring luck to the wearer. Engraved gems from Britain depict Cupid alongside a butterfly, symbolizing spiritual torment or perhaps the soul's journey towards transcendence. Similarly, high-relief depictions of Cupid and Psyche found in Roman domestic plaster wares from the Silk Road settlements in Afghanistan suggest a belief in the integration of body and soul, with Psyche symbolizing the immortal life after death. On sarcophagi, the couple often symbolize the triumph of love over death, representing an allegory of eternal love and the hope for life beyond the grave. Their presence in the Mithraeum of Capua and the invocation of Psyche with Providence in the Mithras liturgy hint at possible connections to Mithraic beliefs, although the exact significance remains uncertain. In late antiquity, Cupid and Psyche were often depicted in an intimate embrace known as the Chinchak, symbolizing erotic communion and spiritual union. The rediscovery of freestanding sculptures of the couple has influenced numerous works in the modern era, attesting to the enduring fascination with their story. Additional depictions of Cupid and Psyche survive from antiquity, including a 2nd century papyrus illustration, possibly depicting their tale, and a ceiling fresco at Trier dating back to the reign of Constantine I, showcasing the widespread popularity and cultural significance of their myth throughout the ancient world. In the mid-15th century, Italian wedding chests, known as cassoni, adorned with depictions of Cupid and Psyche became increasingly popular, especially among the wealthy Medici family. These cassoni often portrayed the narrative in 2 parts, capturing key moments from Psyche's conception to her abandonment by Cupid, as well as her subsequent wanderings and eventual reunion with her lover. Additionally, the subject of Cupid and Psyche featured prominently in paintings depicting the Feast of the Gods, a popular theme from the Renaissance to Northern Mannerism. Artists found the tale rich with scenarios, leading to the creation of cycles of works based on it. Notable examples include the frescoes at the Villa Farnesina by Raphael and his workshop, frescoes at Palazzo del Te by Giulio Romano, and engravings by the master of the die in the mid-16th century. The story of Cupid and Psyche has inspired a wide range of visual representations, focusing often on the couple alone or exploring the figure of Psyche in various emotional states. These depictions have sometimes pushed the boundaries of contemporary sensibilities, particularly in their use of nudity and sexuality. In the 1840s, the National Academy of Art banned William Page's painting of Cupid and Psyche, which was considered the most erotic painting in 19th century America due to its provocative portrayal of the couple. Similarly, Alphonse Legros' 1867 painting of Cupid and Psyche faced criticism for its portrayal of the female figure as a commonplace naked young woman, reflecting societal tensions around the depiction of nudity. Despite these controversies, more chaste interpretations of Cupid and Psyche were also created. For example, pastoral sculptures like Townsend's Psyche, 1845, and Thomas Hewens's Cupid and Psyche, 1846, were favored by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, notable collectors of nudes. These works presented the mythological figures in a more modest and idealized manner. Portrayals of Psyche alone often transcend the narrative of Apuleius, drawing on the broader Platonic tradition where love is a transformative force. Jacques-Louis David's Psyche Abandoned, likely influenced by La Fontaine's version of the tale, captures the moment of Psyche's despair after she has violated the taboo of looking upon her lover. This painting, created during David's imprisonment following his involvement in the French Revolution, uses Psyche's nakedness to symbolize her vulnerability and isolation. The muted color palette reflects the artist's own psychological state, making the work a poignant emotional proxy for his personal turmoil. Friedlander's exploration of European tales highlights the widespread presence of themes similar to the Cupid and Psyche narrative. These tales, known as the search for the lost husband and animal as bridegroom, echo the motif of a human maiden marrying a prince cursed to be an animal, mirroring elements of Apuleius's story. Bruno Bettelheim draws connections between the 18th century fairy tale Beauty and the Beast and Cupid and Psyche, noting similarities in their narrative structures and themes. Motifs from Apuleius's tale also appear in several other fairy tales, such as Cinderella and Rumpelstiltskin, particularly in versions collected by folklorists influenced by the classical tradition like Charles Perrault and the Grimm brothers. In the Grimm version of Cinderella, for instance, Cinderella's task of sorting lentils and peas from ash parallels Psyche's task imposed by Venus, with both heroines receiving aid from helpful creatures. Additionally, both Cinderella and Psyche contend with envious sisters who compete for the attention of a desirable male, leading to tragic consequences for the sisters. Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid similarly draws upon themes found in Cupid and Psyche, particularly in the interactions between the protagonist and her sisters. In Andersen's tale, the Little Mermaid's sisters play a pivotal role in her journey, offering her a dagger to end her suffering and return to her former life as a mermaid. Folklore scholarship has delved deep into the origins of the Cupid and Psyche narrative, with various theories proposed by scholars from different cultural backgrounds and academic disciplines. Jan Eugene Swan, a Swedish folklorist, and Ludwig Friedlander, a German philologist, defended the idea that the tale originated from legitimate folklore sources. They suggested that the story may have its roots in oral traditions passed down through generations in different cultures. Some scholars have sought to identify a single source for the narrative. Stith Thompson proposed an Italian origin, while others, such as Leski, Gideon Hute, and Georgios A. Megas, indicated a Greek origin. Emil Durmingam favored a North African source, suggesting a connection to Berber folklore due to Apuleius's origins in Madoros, Numidia, which is located in modern-day Algeria. Another line of inquiry suggests that the tale may be based on underlying mythic material. Richard August Reitzenstein proposed an Iranian sacral myth that was brought to Greece via Egypt, while Graham Anderson argued for a reworking of mythic material from Asia Minor, specifically citing the Hittite myth of Telepina. Romanian folklorist Petru Karaman also argued for a folkloric origin of the tale, suggesting that Apuleius superimposed Greco-Roman mythology on a pre-Christian myth involving a serpentine or draconic husband, or a king of snakes that transforms into a human at night. On the contrary, Detlev Felling, a German classicist, took a skeptical approach, considering the tale to be a literary invention of Apuleius himself, rather than having roots in oral tradition or pre-existing mythic material. Despite its origins, the story is more than just a captivating tale. It delves into universal themes such as love, trust, jealousy, and redemption. These themes are timeless, reflecting the struggles and aspirations that are inherent in the human condition. The interplay between the mortal and divine realms reflects our inner struggles and aspirations, providing insights into the nature of our desires and fears. By engaging with this ancient story, we tap into a wellspring of wisdom that has been passed down through generations, offering guidance and inspiration for our own lives. This timeless tale continues to enchant and enlighten, revealing new layers of meaning each time it is revisited. Its lasting significance underscores the power of storytelling to convey essential truths about the human condition and our eternal quest for understanding and fulfillment.